Testing. This is Wabash Carnegie Public Library Oral History Program, interviewing Mrs. Louise Sailors at her home, 9 Parkway Drive in Wabash, Indiana, Wednesday afternoon, January 24th, 1973. Louise, let's start off the questioning. Tell me about your parents and when and where you were born.
Well, my father was Andrew Leland. My mother was Anna. And I was born on the south side, 1269 Adams Street. Do you want to know when?
Yes, put it down.
December the 28th, 1908.
Yes. And what was his occupation?
He worked at the Wabash Cabinet as a foreman for quite a number of years. But later in life, he was the assistant chief of police for 2 or 3 terms when Charles Bolte was the chief of police. And I think it was under Wilson, what was his name?
Was the mayor?
The mayor.
Yeah.
I think it was under Wilson's
Dr.
administration.
Wilson?
Dr. Wilson.
Dr.
Right.
James Wilson.
Yeah. That's it.
What was your mother's maiden name?
Rupley.
Rupley. And were your parents both natives of Wabash? Or?
Yes. I think my mother was born up around Manchester someplace, but my father was born in Wabash.
Yeah. Did you have
were some of the first residents of the south side?
Yeah. Did your mother and father, how many children did they have besides yourself?
10.
10 children.
They raised 8 of them.
Yeah. And where did you fit in the line? As youngest
I was
or oldest?
next to the last.
Next to last. Huh?
Right.
Okay, good. Where did you go to grade school then?
On the south side. We had the, we had the 8 grades then. We went to the 8 grades in the one building. And then I came to the north side in what was the old junior high building down on Hill Street for my first 3 years of high school. Then I was one of the members of the first graduating class out of the new high school, the present Wabash High School.
Of course, the old South Side School is gone. That's where the fire station is now.
Right.
Now, when you moved out to the high school as being the first in the graduating class, was that quite a treat going from the old high school on Hill Street?
Oh, yes, it was.
Yeah.
We really thought that was something, that we were the first graduating class.
How did you get from the South Side to the high school back in those days?
Well, we walked. The 3 years to junior high, I can't ever remember of any transportation. But when we got to the new high school, we didn't have any bus transportation, but we did have various taxi services, and I think, as I remember, they were private cars converted to service for the students.
But
we did an awful lot of walking too, an awful lot. No cars.
What course did you take in high school?
I took a commercial, as much commercial work as I could get, because I was aware of the fact through school I probably wouldn't be able to attend college. So I tried to prepare to start into the commercial field right out of school, which I did.
And what did you do then when you graduated? What that would have been the class of?
27.
1927.
Well, several weeks before graduation, they called out at the high school from the old Citizens Bank. Now that bank was located on the northwest corner of Wabash and Market Street. And they needed an employee, so they gave me the opportunity to go down, and I worked until school was out, and they graded me on my work at the bank. And I wasn't aware then that it was to be a permanent job, but it did turn out to be a permanent job. And I stayed there until the fall of 27, and the bank was closed. We were getting into all this bank closing trouble at that time. I never knew too much about the Citizens Bank closing because I'd been there a short time and was young. But the Farmers and Wabash National Bank was located just across the street where the First National Bank is now located. And the day after the Citizens Bank closed, George Martin, who was the cashier, of the Farmers and Wabash National Bank called and asked me if I'd like to come over and go to work there, which I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there until 1933, and that's when the president declared a moratorium on all banks in the United States, and every bank was closed.
Mm-hmm.
And of course our bank was too. And again, I didn't know an awful lot of what was going on, except it wasn't too long until it became apparent that the bank would not be opened up again as such. It was the Farmers and Wabash National. And sometime along the line in the spring, Mr. Honeywell brought Burton P. Allen down from Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure that was through Mr. Honeywell's connections at Minneapolis,
Mm-hmm.
due to his company being up there. And Mr. Allen worked with George Martin to get the bank reopened, which it became apparent wasn't going to happen. So then someplace they started in to organize a new bank.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was just a bookkeeper at the time and didn't know too much about the working of it, except I know there were a lot of trips back and forth to Washington, and there was a lot of preparation. I remember how we used to have to work practically day and night, and I well remember in the fall of 33, when things really began to head up, that we were practically working day and night. They would call us back to work, and I guess the thing was that they had to get all of these records established and take them into Washington for approval.
Mm-hmm.
And there must be a terrific amount of detail on that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then on December the 20th, 1933, the First National Bank in Wabash was opened up.
Mm-hmm.
And I understood at the time that Mr. Honeywell brought Mr. Allen down intending to organize the new bank, and then Mr. Allen would go back up to Minnesota. He and his father owned and operated a bank in Malacca, Minnesota. But instead of that, he stayed on. And of course, he ran the bank. He was the top executive officer. And Mr. Honeywell was, he was president when the bank first opened.
Mr. Honeywell was president?
Yes, he was president of the new bank because he was the instigator in getting that bank organized. And I do know that he put a lot of his money in. He put a lot of hard work, and I know that during these months that he worked very closely with Mr. Allen and Mr. Martin.
Uh-huh.
Now, George Martin took all of the records of the old bank across the street into the Citizens Bank building and became the conservator, I believe they called it at that time. And he worked out all of the records of the old bank.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that there was any loss whatever. I think it eventually paid out 100%. But the new bank was organized and operated in the building where it now is. And Mr. Allen was in charge of that bank.
Well, let's go back a little bit. How many banks were there when you, let's say, you got out of high school?
I can remember several. There was the Wabash County Loan and Trust that was down on the corner of Canal and Wabash, where the old Plain Dealer building is. And I can well remember there was a Wabash National Bank, and that was across the street where Lindberghs now have their little shop.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was a Farmers and Merchants, and it was down in the middle of Market Street where the First Federal is now located.
Mm-hmm.
Now, someplace along the line, and I'm not sure of these datings, the Wabash National and the Farmers and Merchants consolidated into the Farmers and Wabash National,
Mm-hmm.
and that was located on the corner where the First National is now.
When they consolidated after the holiday, when they started the First National, and they didn't start off with anything.
There was no other
Farmers
bank in
and
Wabash.
National or
No,
nothing?
there was nothing except the First National.
Yeah.
And from March of 33 until December 20th of that year, all records were frozen,
Mm-hmm.
and everything that happened were completely new records.
Mm-hmm.
If someone came in and wanted to open an account, it had nothing to do with old records. They were all taken out of the bank.
Mm-hmm.
Now that much I remember, but I'm not too sure of a lot of the detail
Yeah.
at that time.
What was your position then when the First National Bank opened? We'd be actually starting a new bank on December
Yes.
the 20th, 1933.
Yes. Well, now they took some of the help across the street with Mr. Martin, but I had asked to stay in the new bank because you could see the handwriting on the wall, and if you wanted to stay in banking, you wanted to stay with the First National. So I got to stay, and I was just in bookkeeping, I believe, at the time. And then soon after the bank opened, Bill Willard Rohr, who later went with the Nixon newspapers, was the operating officer. And soon after the bank was opened, and I'm not sure of the dating, they gave me his detail work, such as the general books of the bank and the liability books of the bank and the accrual systems. And someplace along the line, and I'm not sure of the dating of that, I was made auditor. And then as I became a senior officer, that was changed to controller auditor. Then in the late 30s, Mr. Allen brought Ralph Sherping down from Minnesota as the second executive officer. And in the early 40s, Mr. Sherping went down to Peru and worked with the Peru Tribune for Mr. Allen. Mr. Allen was general manager of all the Nixon newspapers at that time. And he came back in the late 40s because Mr. Allen was leaving the bank to go to California to accept a position in a bank at Sacramento. And soon after Mr. Sherping came back and was made president of the bank, they made me cashier, which I had wanted for some time, but for some reason Mr. Allen held me in the audit side of the bank. But Mr. Sherping saw to it that I was made the cashier, and that was the job I had until I retired in 1972.
Was that unusual for a woman cashier in the state of Indiana?
Yes, it was. However, at that time, I think it was a little bit more unusual to have a controller auditor as a woman, and Mr. Allen seemed to kind of enjoy that prestige. For instance, when I would go to bank meetings, which I did all over the state, in fact all over the country, because he would send me to the national conventions, I would be the only woman there. And that pleased him no end. He liked the unusual. But I wanted that cashier job real bad, and Mr. Sherping wanted me to have it, and it wasn't very long until that's what I was doing.
We're doing a lot on Mr. Honeywell, trying to find out what kind of a person he was and so forth. How active was he when they reorganized the bank? And I can give you a little background on some of the things. Frank Reddick.
Good.
Frank was a member of the board of one of the other banks at the time, and Mr. Honeywell, according to Frank's story, had asked him to be one of the directors at the First National when they reorganized it, and Frank turned it down, saying that he was being sued for $800,000 as being a board member of one of the other banks and didn't want the bank to get off to a poor start. And Wilbur Ford also related how Mr. Honeywell asked him to be one of the members of the board of directors, which of course he served.
Wilbur was.
Yeah. And what do you remember about that original board that Mr. Honeywell picked?
Well, soon after the new bank was organized, I had charge of the minute book. So I do remember the board, and I do remember that Mr. Honeywell was very active. He always attended board meetings, and he was in the bank quite often at that time too, when the bank first opened. And I know that he worked very closely with Mr. Allen on bank policies and so forth. Then, I don't know how long I had worked there when Edna Van Dusen, who was Mr. Allen's secretary, left the bank, and I went up front to take a front desk and was closely associated with Mr. Allen from that time on. So I had really a little bit closer contact with Mr. Honeywell, because if someone was to go to his office for something, I was the someone who went, don't you know? And then it wasn't too long until they made me secretary of the bank, and I attended all board meetings. So of course I had a closer association then than I would have otherwise. And from the first, I always admired him very much. It seemed to me he treated me just the same as he would treat the president of a bank that came into Wabash, if you know what I mean. When I went to his office, He was all courtesy, and he made you feel at home, and he would give you the utmost respect. Whatever you wanted, you got. And he was especially nice to me, I thought.
Did he maintain an office at the First National Bank also?
No, he did not have an office there. He had his own office over at the Honeywell plant.
Yeah. How often would you have to go see him then?
Oh, I expect I was over there once a week, for something. They would exchange. Now, it wasn't anything personal of mine. I was more or less an errand boy for the VP.
Yeah. To your knowledge, did Mr. Honeywell set any of the policies relative to the bank's investments, or as Wilberforce has told me, he did, and so forth?
He may have, but knowing Mr. Allen, I would say that it either originated with Mr. Allen or it had his approval. Because your top executive officer, a lot of people have a mistaken idea of what the board of directors do, but they are not active in your bank unless they are an executive officer. And to my knowledge, we never did have an executive officer on the board of directors, or rather I should say we didn't have a director that was an executive officer in the bank. And for that reason, I believe that no doubt he would have had something to do with policy, because one of the things that was wrong that the old bank couldn't open up again was the investments. And of course Mr. Honeywell had nothing to do with that, but he would have been quite anxious to have good investments and to correct a situation that had kept the old bank from opening up. I can understand that. And I know that he and Mr. Allen worked together very closely, but I would have no way of knowing at that time what was going on. I wasn't far enough along in the bank and its policy.
Would you say when the bank started, what would you say their philosophy was? Conservative?
Very conservative. Very conservative, because that's the way Mr. Allen operated. And especially with the farmers. And you no doubt have heard, as everybody else in Wabash has heard, how B.P. Allen chased off the farm trade. Well, when the banks opened after the moratorium, the government put an awful lot of rules and regulations on banks that they'd never had before. For instance, a farmer couldn't walk in and borrow $5,000 just by signing his name. He had to give a financial statement. And I can remember, if they were supposed to give a financial statement, that's what Mr. Allen required. And the farmers were very, very unhappy. And they would refuse to do some of these things that they never had to do before, which you can understand. So a lot of the rich farm trade was run off at that time, and it was very, very hard to ever recover a lot of it, as you well know. But I do know that the bank did operate very conservatively, and I think that Mr. Honeywell was back of a lot of that. And I think the policy was to start a good, strong bank that would stand in Wabash, and they kind of lost sight or didn't care too much about making money. And they didn't make any money for a number of years. I can remember we were up somewhere close to the 40s before we were in an income tax problem, because I did the income tax for a number of years. And then I also remember Mr. Allen sent me up to Malacca, Minnesota at one time to establish a lot of the systems in his little bank up there that we had here at Wabash. And his father was an old-time farmer banker, was a wonderful person. And he told me one time, he said, "There's one thing about my son Burton. He sure knows how to run a bank, but he sure doesn't know how to make any money in a bank." And that was true. But I think both Mr. Honeywell and Mr. Allen were very anxious to get a good, sound bank established.
Do you think they were similar conservative philosophies then?
Yes, very much so.
As attending the board meetings, did you see any conflict between the board and Mr. Allen or Mr. Honeywell's philosophies?
Not so much Mr. Honeywell. I don't remember any with Mr. Honeywell. And if there was any conflict, I think it was because of a lot of new policies and new things in banking that Mr. Allen brought in that they weren't used to, they had to get used to. And I think that that was true in the bank crew, and it was true in the banking organization. Mr. Allen was bound and determined to have a good, sound bank, and he had a very strict audit policy, which we had never had. In fact, that was just coming into banks after all of the bank closings and all the bank troubles. And he was a stickler on that. And I thoroughly enjoyed my job under him and learned an awful lot under him that I'm sure I would never have learned otherwise, because he was a perfectionist. And if he asked you to do something, it never entered his head that you wouldn't do it and do it perfectly. And if you didn't, that was just too bad.
Were the assets of this Farmers and Merchants Bank, or Farmers and National, is that what you call it?
The Farmers and Wabash National.
Did they ever become liquid again, to your knowledge, or what happened?
Well, I know that they paid out 100% to their depositors. Now, what was taken from the Farmers and Wabash National Bank into the First National Bank, I'm not too sure about that. I was a little bookkeeper back here in the corner at the time. But I think that the First National Bank was more or less pretty new from the ground up.
Did they have a hard time selling stock when they got going in 1933?
I don't know too much about that. Nothing happened around there that I was aware of that indicated that they did, but I think that Mr. Honeywell put a great deal of his own money in at the time. I don't think there was too much of a struggle, because I think that he came through when it was necessary.
How long did Mr. Honeywell remain active then in the bank, with businesses and so forth?
Oh, he was in the bank until his health began to fail. Because I can remember him coming in even after he was out of the factory and out of his own business. He wasn't able, but he still would come in the bank. And he came in really up pretty close to the time that it was necessary for him to go to the hospital at Indianapolis.
But then he really maintained an active interest in it.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Mr. Sherping, you see, took over, and I don't think Mr. Sherping was ever quite as close to him as Mr. Allen was, and you can understand that. But they worked together the years that Mr. Sherping was there, I'm sure. And I don't know just exactly when it was that Mr. Honeywell left the bank, but it was when his health finally failed.
Did you know the first Mrs. Honeywell?
I'm not real sure whether I knew her personally or whether I knew her by hearing so much about her. The one thing that is in my memory is when she passed away. I remember that we had her estate at the bank, and I was the one, this is minor, but I had to take all of her checking accounts from the Florida bank, because they had residents in Florida too, and the Wabash Bank, and dovetail those on a machine. And I remember going down there night after night for weeks and months doing that. So I kind of think that my relationship with her is more from hearing things than from ever having much contact with her. For one thing, they were in Florida a lot of the time when she was living.
Did Mrs. Nixon, the present Mrs. Honeywell, did you know her then?
Yes, I knew her quite well, because you see, she was associated with the Nixon newspapers actively. And Mr. Allen was made, I think he maybe was business manager of all of the papers at that time. And again, I would have contact with her because of him. So I knew her quite well.
Yeah, I didn't know there was a connection between Mr. Allen and the Nixon newspapers.
Yes, there was. He was on their payroll for a number of years. And
he
had a very keen business ability. And I think he was instrumental in really putting that paper on their feet after Don Nixon was out of the picture.
How would he devote his time to both?
He spent all of his time in our bank. What time he gave to them was either after hours or when he could just work it in there at the bank. And it was more of an oversee. Now he would send, for instance, Mr. Honeywell, or Mr. Sherping and I were sent to Michigan City and down to one of the southern papers, I can't think of right now what it is, but he would send us to audit them and do that sort of work for him, you know, but that would be a weekend. He wouldn't pull us off of our bank jobs to do that sort of thing.
Oh, I mean,
The only time he really pulled me off of the job was to send me up to Malacca to supervise this bank up there, you know.
how did the selection of Mr. Sherping come along then?
That was through Mr. Allen, a friendship that they had previous to BP coming to Wabash.
Did Mr. Honeywell have to put his seal of approval on this also?
I presume he did, although I have no way of knowing. They were two exact opposites, Mr. Allen and Mr. Sherping, and at the time he brought him here, we were needing his kind the worst way because Mr. Allen had set these strict policies and, as you can well imagine, had kind of built up a resistance with the public. So he brought Sherping down here, and of course, you know, everybody liked Sherping. He was one swell guy, easygoing, wonderful personality, wonderful public relation man. So they really worked together, you know.
Yeah.
And he brought something into the bank that they really were needing at that time. And the bank was pretty well established as far as any policies and all of that sort of thing. So Sherping just kind of took over and was a good man to have around, if you know what I mean.
But you say that Mr. Sherping and Mr. Honeywell weren't as close as...
They never appeared to be as close, and I could understand that because there wasn't a necessity by then. The bank was well on its way to being a good sound bank, and Mr. Honeywell was beginning to ease out of the business world, and I can see why there wouldn't be quite the relationship that there was between Mr. Honeywell and Mr. Allen.
Well, you never really missed a day's work then from the day that you left high school.
No, I never was out of banking until I retired.
As you look back, were those exciting days in the organization of the bank?
Yes, they were. I think it was far more of a challenge, too, than we have now because, for instance, I was required to take all sorts of education on the side as far as banking was concerned, and they had IBA courses, and I don't know how many of those I took. And I know when I took over my reports, all the bank reports, which I was soon doing, I didn't have the training that we give people now. You stand by and tell them where every figure comes from and where they put every figure, but I wasn't fortunate enough to have that. I just had to dig everything out for myself, don't you know? But I really think there was more of a challenge, and there seemed to be more pride in the job than there is now. It's just more or less of a job for these students that come out of school now, it seems to me, and I think that's true in a lot of places as far as that's concerned. But I think there was a little bit more pride back in those days to have a bank job, and especially to be a bank officer, don't you know? Where there's just something missing in this day and age, I think, with a lot of our younger people.
Do you feel that in the 30s when they organized the bank that banks had that good name that they have today? Oh, really?
Oh, no. No, it was a real struggle because you see so many banks had closed and people in Wabash had lost a lot of money in banks. So they had to build that all back up and get the confidence of people, as you can well see. We're just...
No, some other time. Now we've been joined by Jim Sailors, and we're discussing now the 1933 and the reorganization of the bank and so forth. So let's go back and let me ask you a question first. Is when and where you were born?
I was born in Wabash, 1907.
1907.
March 23rd.
Who were your parents?
Martin Vess and Ona Mae Sailors.
And your mother's maiden name?
Havens.
Havens. And
Heavens.
Yeah. And where did you go to school in?
Westward.
Westward. Went to Wabash High School.
I started. I didn't go.
What did you do when you finished? You got out of school?
Went to work.
Where?
The Warren Company.
Doing?
Working on machines.
Yeah.
Woodworking.
Was old Boss Walters alive back in those days?
No, but his son was, Fred.
Yeah.
Fred B. They called him boss too, but he wasn't. The old man was boss.
When did you,
We can't have this background.
when did you go up the bank to work? What year?
45, November the 19th.
Tell me a little bit about your Army experience.
Yeah, well, let's, not to jump ahead to the, tell me about World War II.
See, he came there from the service.
Well,
This isn't on the tape, is it? And
Yeah, that's okay. We'll edit it out
I never
anyhow.
saw him until he came to the bank to work.
Lived here all my life.
Yeah, you'd never met him.
No. I knew her sister a long time before I knew her. Her youngest sister.
Uh-huh. And, well, how about World War II? Drafted or enlisted or?
No, I enlisted.
And what year?
41,
And
May 12th.
where did you go?
Pine Camp, New York.
And what happened?
Well, I was with the 4th Army Division up there. And then I was out 78 days by virtue of being over 28.
Uh-huh.
And then after Pearl Harbor, I was recalled and went to Tennessee on maneuvers, and then from there to the desert, California. From there I went to OCS, and then from there I went amphibian truck company.
Mm-hmm. And then what outfit did they send you overseas with?
Amphibian truck company, 459th.
Mm-hmm. Where?
We went from Kelmer to Swansea, Wales. And we did our amphibious training down there. That's ship to shore unloading, unloading ducks,
Mm-hmm.
cargo,
And then from Wales to
Normandy.
Normandy. And all across Normandy, you stay right there on the beaches, or?
We stayed on the beaches until around November, and we left there and went up into Belgium. I think it was about the last of November. We went up to Belgium. We got up there just in time for the Battle of the Bulge.
Mm-hmm. And then what?
Well, we were in the Battle of the Bulge, and then we went over the Rhine and the Ruhr and up into Germany, and then that was it.
How long were you overseas then, from the time you left?
About, I think it was about 28 or 29 months.
Mm-hmm. Then you,
George, I don't know whether you're aware of it or not, but our trip to Europe was to retrace the beaches and
Which we
meet the
did.
people that he had.
did you find anything familiar when you went back to Europe 29
yeah.
years later?
Found some people.
Did you?
Oh yes, I found a boy that was 12 years old, starving to death, a little bit of an orphan. The only relative we had in this world was an ancient granddad.
Mm-hmm.
And this kid was 12, and like I say, he was starving. He was little for his age and everything, and I've corresponded with him for 28 years.
Mm-hmm.
Sent him the Reader's Digest and the French edition for those years, too.
Uh-huh.
And, of course, we hadn't seen each other since then, and when we went over, we planned to see him and all these different people in Belgium that I'd been with during the Battle of the Bulge, and we met quite a few. Well, we met some people down in Port Island in Wales that was there when we did our training, and altogether it was a pretty satisfying trip.
I bet it would be.
They really put out the red carpet.
Well, I
In
bet
Belgium.
they would.
In
yeah.
Belgium.
Oh, I'm sure they
But
would.
the French, of course, anyone that's ever been over in France knows that they don't care for us, and of course we have the same regard for them.
Mm-hmm.
We were in this one home, Martha.
Croquet, yes, her brother was the mayor of this little village.
Mm-hmm.
They had how many boys in there upstairs?
45, I think.
45 of our boys. Christmas, she and her sister made cookies for.
Great.
You can't find this little village on the map. It isn't even listed on any map that I've ever seen.
Uh-huh.
The name of it is Hutain San Simeon.
Uh-huh.
Tell him about where you stayed. He may not want it on the record, but
Yeah, go ahead. That's good.
I stayed with a very famous hat manufacturer.
In France?
No,
In Belgium?
Yeah. You've heard of Borsellino, Italian hats, haven't you? Well, this is Guénaud,
And that's
Belgium.
Belgium.
Yeah, they have factories in 3 different cities. They have them in Leghorn, Italy, Lille, France, and Hutain San Simeon, Belgium.
Over there.
And of course their plant was completely buzz-bombed and was almost completely ruined during the Battle of the Bulge. They started on about the 10th of December And of course the Germans were sending their V1s over, and they didn't know where they would go. They filled them up with gas, you know, and parted them and raised the ramp, you know. They elevated their ramps, hoping that they would be somewhere within the, and what they were trying to do is knock out the A's, because that's a big port, inland port, you know, and they bombed them indiscriminately, you know. They just send a buzz bomb over, and that wherever it landed, that was okay with them. And they were lucky enough to hit the arms factory at Harrisol. You've heard of that, the Browning Arms Factory, one of the biggest ones in the world. They had a big military and an industrial complex there where they made guns for everybody, including the Russians and all of our allies. And we stayed in the house of this hat manufacturer. Had our mess hall in our kitchen, and mess hall was in their factory where they made the hats. They were in the basement because the Germans had told them that if they returned it would be too bad for them. They had a 6-month-old baby, and they had 2 kids, a boy and a girl. And I think the girl is older than the boy, so I think she was 6 and the boy was 5. And he kept us informed about where the Germans were all the time. He had this BBC, and he listened in the basement to every move they made. And when they got within 5 miles of this little village, he was and his family were all set to take off. They were going to try to escape to France, and it was kind of a tense moment for them because they didn't want anything to happen to this little baby. And we have pictures of the kids now. They're married and all that.
Grown. Yeah.
Well, we went over. He knew we were coming. This you know, he and his wife knew we were coming over, and we were supposed to see them on a Saturday. Well, we went to this little village and they weren't there, so we left and we went to see on Saturday. What did we do on Saturday? Nothing. We just visited with different ones.
We visited around with these people you had known.
Yeah.
And then on Sunday we went down to Bastogne.
We went to Bastogne on Sunday, and we came back and we stopped at their house again. They weren't home, so I told Louise, I said, well, that's quite a disappointment. I expected to see them, you know. And we were at the airport in Brussels waiting for a plane in London, and they came. They spent the morning of Monday coming from Bhutan up to Brussels, which is a all-morning drive, you know.
Just to see you before you left.
They do nothing about when we were going or anything. They had no schedule when we were going. We didn't tell anyone when we were going, except we were going to London from Brussels. And they got there about an hour before the plane.
This man came walking in with this lady
yelled,
and a young man.
I had my back turned.
He said, Mr. Sailors.
He yelled it 3 or 4 times.
And
I heard
Jim
him.
looked around and they ran to
Of course,
each other and they
I
were
recognized
laughing
him
and
right away.
crying and
And
I didn't know what was going on.
I said, well, there's no use standing here. We might as well go in the cafe, because Louise and I were just debating whether to go in. I was going to have a beer and she was going to have a cup of coffee and or tea or something. And he said, let's go. And he said, I'll buy some champagne. So he did. And
Grand people.
yeah.
They spoke only French.
Only
but
French?
They brought their son-in-law along who spoke English.
Yeah.
Most of these people that we visited with only spoke French.
We have pictures of their families.
But we communicated with all of them.
Let me show George.
This John, who was
There for 26 years.
Jim, when did you start to work at First National?
November the 19th of 45.
How did you happen to get a job there? What were the circumstances?
Well, I was not doing anything, and Tom Sunheimer, who was the cashier then, asked me if I'd like to work in the bank, and I told him no, and he said, well, would you do it as a favor to me? He said, I'm not going to be there long, and he said, if you come down there, he said, you don't have to stay very long, and then you can get something else. And I said, well, I'll give her a whirl, and I did.
Good. Did you ever meet Mr. Honeywell?
Oh yeah, a lot of times. I knew him before I worked at the bank, though.
How did you meet him first time?
Well, I used to work at his plant, 1927.
That was after the merger with the Minneapolis company?
That was about the time. That was just before they merged.
Yeah. What was your earliest recollections of your...
Well, he was the owner. That's the only thing I knew about him.
Yeah. Did you see him very often?
Not very often, huh? Didn't have much contact with him.
How long did you work at Honeywell?
Not very long, just a few months.
Any particular reason you left, or?
Yeah, I didn't like it.
What were you doing there?
I was in adjusting at a demotor, what they call it. It was down where the Wabash Filing Supplies is now. That's when they started expanding.
Yeah. And who was your boss?
Rusty Myers. Russell Myers.
Russell Myers. Russell Myers.
Yeah, he worked at the water company.
Yeah.
After that, you know.
What did you remember Mr. Honeywell when you worked at the bank?
Oh yes.
Did you see him very often?
About every week when they came to the directors' meetings.
Yeah.
But he didn't come in. He didn't come in that often when I was working there.
Yeah.
When he did come in, it was usually go back to a safety deposit booth room.
Did you ever have remember anything funny that ever happened?
Not that. No, I can't remember anything that he ever did that was funny.
Louise, do you ever remember any funny incidents with Mr. Honeywell?
He wasn't that type.
Do you ever remember Mr. Honeywell getting mad?
Mm-hmm.
Over what?
Well, it was a deal there at the bank, which I can't tell, but yes, he was pretty mad, and is this being on there?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, if you turn it off, I'll tell you.
Oh, well, it's no good as history if I turn it off.
Well, there was a mix-up back with the
safety
safety deposit vault
Yeah.
with his box,
Yeah.
and he really was mad and insisted that we let the girl go, and she was not to blame. He was to blame for what happened. He got his box in the wrong nest. At that time, they opened up the nest, took the box out, left it open. They went to the booth. They came back and put their own box in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he put his in the wrong place. So when it was discovered, then of course the one
Then
right
you get the
next
other
to
one,
his
too.
in the same size, the fella put his in, and it was open, and took the key and left. So there was quite a hullabaloo, and he insisted that the attendant be fired, but Mr. Allen held his ground, and she was not fired.
She kept her job?
She got to keep her job, and there was a very, very cold feeling there for quite a long time.
But in no one would have been able to open his box, so would they? They would still have had another key to get into his box directly.
Well, they
Right.
would have been.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, there would never have been any trouble.
Yeah.
But anything like that really upset him.
Yeah.
He had that other thing too about the room.
Now, was this toward the end there when he was,
No.
his health was failing? This
No.
is when he was still strong
Oh,
and
that was
vigorous and good
years,
health?
uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yes, right.
I'll be darned.
They had another thing about that room back there, but then it's incidental.
Gee, I don't believe I remember that, Jim.
Yes, you do. About the big room, he insisted they take everything out of there so he could use the big room when he came in there. He didn't want any little
Oh,
room.
yes. He didn't like to be crowded.
We used to have the coin wrapping. All
Yes.
the coins wrapped there.
He was very dogmatic when he wanted something.
So they had to take the stuff upstairs in the front of the bank and carry it upstairs and carry it back down and put it in the vault
All of
instead
the
of...
coin. All of the coin.
Yeah, we used to have a raft of it, 10, 12, 14,000 every week that we wrapped and carried up and down the stairs.
For what particular reason?
Well, we had to get it changed because we wrapped it. See, we ordered it from Chicago. It
So
takes
he
that
could
much.
have the big room for his business when he came in.
See, he didn't want with the little rooms.
Oh,
We had
I
one
see.
room there.
Yeah, I see.
He had to move everything out.
Yeah.
The coin, the machine, everything had to go out there. And he was the only one that complained about it. But he did. He complained bitterly
Yeah.
about it, and they had to change that.
Yeah.
But that made a burden on the people that had to wrap the coin, one down Winry, if I remember correctly.
What would you say his outstanding characteristic was?
Perfectionist, I think.
Perfection. I've heard that from so many others. That
He was a perfectionist. Tell him about the deal down at Honeywell's, Jim, when Lloyd, or Webb, what was his name, was trying to put that
Lloyd
wall
Webb.
in.
This is not going in, is it?
I've heard the story before, but let me hear your version.
Well, he kept putting this wall in, taking it out, putting it in, taking it out. One day Floyd Webb said, why don't we put a wall on casters and roll it up there, and we don't like it, we'll take it out. We wouldn't be, spending all this money putting a new wall in every time. He told him that he wanted it that way, and he gave the contractor an understanding, that was the way it was to be, and that's the way it was.
Yes.
I don't know how many
He
times
was,
he tore the wall out, but it must have been
He was very demanding with
quite a few times.
Marvel Walrod, his secretary.
And
You
Floyd.
should really get a tape from Marvel when she returns.
She's agreed to, Doc's wife, I guess, is in bad health, very bad
Yes.
health. And,
She'd never tell it like it is. She wouldn't.
well,
want to.
she'd have to have, I'd have to get some kind of clearance from Honeywell. Mrs. Honeywell's agreed to do a tape.
Well, I know that how demanding he was, because I know myself of times that he called her,
That's going on the.
for instance, I don't care.
Yeah.
We
She can
can
edit it out.
eliminate anything we want to before anybody sees it. He would call her out of a party to pick him up someplace at a station or something, and she,
Marvel.
and that was all of her life.
Yeah. Do you think? Well, of course.
So she loved it.
Yeah. Well, I think that was her life. That was her life, and that revolved around Mr. Honeywell. And
That was her
she-
entire life.
she wanted it, and obviously that's she could have done other things.
Mhm.
But she has agreed to do a tape.
She's the one that can tell you about Mr.
She was
Yeah,
closer
oh,
to
I'm
him. She was
sure.
closer to him than anybody, including his wife,
Yes, I'm sure she
because
is.
she spent most of her good years with him.
Yeah. But I think that Mr. Honeywell left something for the community.
Right.
He was good for Wabash, as Wabash was good to him too
Right.
over the years, and it's a two-way street, you know.
I'll tell him something else when he turns that off.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that I'm going to conclude this tape. We're almost out of tape anyhow. And thank both you, Jim and Louise, for your time. And this is George Dingledye doing the interview.